We are live. It's 9:30. I'll call the meeting to order. We have someone on remote. Could you identify yourself, please?
This is Tanya Mack.
Thank you, Tanya. Okay, at this time, there were no citizens who had requested to make a comment, so we'll go right to the approval of the minutes. All of you have seen the minutes. Were there any corrections or changes necessary? If there weren't any, a motion to approve by Savage, seconded by Billard. All those in favor, aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so the first thing we will do, Tanya, since you've been so cooperative, kind to call us, we will start with the report from Mack and Associates for the audit.
Which is down for an action item on the agenda, so that the chairman decided to go out of order and move on the action item. Thank you. So as I understand it, then the chairman, you're deciding to go out of order to accommodate someone a professional who's here in regard to the audit, and in regard to action items, the 4A, which is in regard to the motion to accept and place on file the 2024 insurance trust audit, concerning which Auditor Mack was present at the last meeting, but the trust committee had just received the audit, and it was put over for certain reasons until this meeting, so further questions could be considered, and for the trust committee to further consider and have an action item to accept and place on file the audit.
You gotta remember, it's been a while. Do we have any questions from anyone concerning the audit? Jim, did you have any questions?
Well, the only thing I wanted to indicate is the auditor indicated last time that she was here that with her having more background and experience, and with the county and the people involved having more experience with her, that it went much smoother this time, and there seemed to be less comments and concerns in the audit this time than there were. It was, as the auditor, Ms. Mack, acknowledged last time, it was a clean audit. There were no material issues in regard to the audit itself or the clean opinion that was issued, and the issues that she raised in regard to internal concern, the auditor acknowledged on there that those are things the county could, and that has to do with, again, whether they want to get somebody independent retained to prepare the financial statements to assist the audit rather than having the auditor do it. But the auditor also recognized in the statements that this county, and as I recall, there had been other discussions that other counties sometimes do the same, for financial reasons, they're not able to necessarily always do that. So I don't have any other questions at this time, except to encourage, which I'm sure will take place, both the auditor and the representatives of the county in regard to the financial statements to try and coordinate things as best they can, and the county can consider further whether it's going to hire that independent person as well.
Mr. Chairman, did you have any questions?
None at this time. Thank you.
Marius, I just have a couple of very small questions. My first one was on the letter that was given to us. And in it on the second page, under criteria, and this is a very small detail, it says the board of directors. We are a board of trustees, not directors. Does that make a difference?
It does not. We can go ahead and for future.
Okay, I was just, I just wanted it aligned with what our ordinance says and everything else. My second question was on page 12 of the audit, under custodial credit risk, and I believe it's also under cash and investments. It's noted that the trust does not have an investment policy that addresses concentration of credit risk. Is this a procedural matter and not a deficiency, since it's not listed as a deficiency?
That's not a deficiency. You use external investment firms. I'm not too concerned with that at all either.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, my last question was I noticed on page 16, note 8, outstanding reserves. This wasn't in the previous audit. Is this something that's new for this year?
So this was brought up several times last year, just saying, so we added this footnote clarification, that this was reported as outstanding reserve, however, they had not been days as of year end as a payable, but basically were out at year end that had not been reported as a.
Okay. My last question was, in this audit, we have only one noted deficiency versus the 3 that were in the previous audit. I'm assuming that those concerns have been addressed and corrected?
Yes.
That was it. Thank you very much.
And in regard to
Anyone else?
in regard to reserves are something that's a potential liability depending on what the result in the case is. A reserve may or may not need to be paid depending on what the result in the case is.
Correct, and that's why we footnote disclose it rather than reporting the actual liability.
I understand exactly what your reasoning was, but I want to make sure that any members here who might not understand the technical aspect of it, that might get that clarification might be helpful.
Thank you, Sandy. If there are no further questions, I would entertain a motion to accept and place the audit on file by Craig and seconded by Small. Or Doug, I'm sorry, Doug. Any other questions on it? If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much, Tanya.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, the next thing then, going back up to the top in B, is Jason Edgecombe is here. You want to address us, Jason, on,
Sure. So the reason I'm here today is I just wanted, being a small community that we are, we have some issues with our hospital. I just want to make sure you guys are aware of it because I know that there's probably several people within this committee and on other committees who have contacts at the hospital. So if one of those contacts reaches out to you guys, you understand exactly what's going on. This is not a LaSalle County problem. This is a statewide problem and probably a national problem. But I know it's hard to believe hospitals don't like dealing with people that are in custody. So they're very quick to release them. And a lot of times we get people dumped on us that probably should be receiving hospital care instead of getting dumped at the jail level. In working with our risk management people, this is a problem that they've seen, and Jason can talk a little bit more on it too, I believe. They've seen it in a lot of jails, and they've been working on paperwork that is actually, we would send, we haven't implemented it yet. I've been waiting for this just to make sure nobody had any issues with it, that gets sent with somebody before they come into custody to the hospital. The hospital is not going to like having to fill it out because it's pretty much telling the hospital that this person is okay to be incarcerated. In other words, it's outlining what a jail can and cannot do for somebody. We get a lot of people that sometimes an officer should take them in and they should probably get admitted to choices. And the hospital will say, well, they're going to the jail will be okay to take care of them. I'm not really sure what the jail will be okay to take care of them is, because they're not getting the same care they would get if they were in a mental ward in the hospital. Another example of that is we've run across a few times now. If somebody responds to a scene of where they have to Narcan an individual, there's standard guidelines on how long that person has to be observed at the hospital. We've got people that are coming without going to the hospital. We turn them away. The agency takes them to the hospital. They're back within 3 minutes, and the hospital sends a letter saying they're clear to go to jail. That is not an industry standard for care within a hospital. So I'm letting you guys know, for the liability of the county, we're going to stop allowing those things. We will get some pushback from the hospital. We will work with the hospital through those things. But I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. When we're doing this, we're not doing it because we don't want to deal with people. We're doing it because we don't want to needlessly get sued for something that somebody should have been receiving proper care for outside of our facility before they came in.
Jason, when you say you're gonna push back, you mean you're gonna tell them you won't accept them back, you mean?
So I'm working with risk management on this currently. Like I said, they have a form that they're putting out to other jails throughout the state. And we're going to start using that form, and we're going to tell the hospitals that they have to fill this out or we're not going to take them back. If it's not filled out. And then that'll be on the other agencies also that are arresting them that are going to have to push for that, because if they want them brought into custody, they're going to have to get them released properly from the hospital before we will accept them.
So is there an officer there with them? I mean, can the hospital just say, all right, just go, walk, leave?
No, whoever arrests them will have them in custody when they
Okay,
take
that's what I
them
was wanting
to
make
the
sure. I just wanna
hospital.
Make sure the hospital just doesn't decide now, well, all right, bring them here, we'll just let them walk out the front door.
Right. No, so we'll send the paperwork with the officer that goes down there. I'm trying to set something up with the hospital before we just start sending these papers down there. I mean, I don't like things coming as a surprise to me. I don't want it to be a surprise to them. I don't think that's fair. So I am trying to work with them to find out who the best person is to sit down with, give them that paperwork ahead of time, let them know some of the problems that we've had. They may not even be aware of it.
So the officer will know how to read the form to make sure it's filled out right. If it's not, he just gives it back to him.
Correct. Correct. We'll make sure that any officer who has to take them will highlight the points to it that need to be signed and filled out properly.
Jason, let's say a county deputy would arrest someone, take him to the hospital, and the hospital says he's good, he can go back. Are you saying it's up to the jail to determine that he's not really ready, or?
I'm saying that the county deputies, we've talked with the sheriff about this. He's aware of the problem. They will not get treated differently than any other city agency. This comes down to the liability that gets put on the county of people coming into the jail. And we need to make sure that we're not taking on any liability, no matter who arrests them, for someone that's going to come in. We've had issues of officers. We find out after the fact that they bring us somebody who says that they're going to kill themselves. The officers never tell us that, and we see a police report 2 weeks later, and it's in the police report. That's a problem that we need to make sure we address, because I mean, don't get me wrong. I tell all my new people that I hire, I will support you and I will jump in front of a bus for you. But if an agency did that to me, I would have zero problem throwing them in front of that bus. Because that's not fair to my people to bring me somebody and not tell us that they made that comment to them.
Would the hospital be inclined to keep them if we had a guard there? Is that the problem?
No, they just don't want to. I don't want to undersell the stress in an emergency room, especially in the situation we're at locally right now with our hospitals. It could be a very stressful situation. When you take a normal emergency room crazy night and you start throwing inmates in custody who might be out of control, who might be angry, and putting them on top of it, it's obvious why they don't want to deal with them. And in their head, they're thinking they're fine, they're going to be watched, they're going to be taken to the jail. Somebody will be there to take care of them. Well, we don't have 24-hour nursing. So if it's 11 o'clock at night and they bring them to us, we don't have a nurse that can monitor him or her if a problem happens. And then one of the other things that happens is we've had situations, and it happened. The main reason this came up is because about 2 months ago, we had a female who came in. They took her to the hospital. She told the hospital that she said she had seizures and she hadn't taken her medication. The hospital told her it's just anxiety. Within 3 hours, she was unconscious in our safety cell and she was flown to Rockford Hospital. If we would have had this sheet, they would have had to do a more thorough examination of her instead of just cutting her loose. And then we had to sit on her, and the manpower we had to use up in Rockford for over a week, going back and forth and watching this subject, someone that I don't feel ever needed to be in that situation. It's one thing we have manpower at Ottawa Hospital, but when we start driving back and forth to Rockford or Peoria, then we really start putting a strain on things.
Anyone else? Anyone have any questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Greg, you're gonna
Hi,
respond now?
Jason Ree with IPMG. If I could just kind of affirm some of Superintendent Edgecombe's positions. Unfortunately, law enforcement has kind of been placed front and center in both the medical crisis and mental health crisis that the country is faced with. Mental health facilities across Illinois and the country have been closed down over the last 20 to 25 years. There's no place for people to go. The jails are put in a particular position that is very high in liability. And I think with the utilization of the form that we recommend for the jails and with some of Jason's points, it limits the liability not only for the jail and the employees, but also the overall taxpayers of LaSalle County, and puts some of the onus back onto the medical facilities that sometimes rubber stamp people to get them in and out of the hospital very quickly to open up beds. The jail is not the place necessarily for people that have a mental or physical ailment to be monitored 24/7. There's just not the resources available there. And so again, this form kind of assists in that the physician has to put their name on it. It has to be signed off by the hospital. As you all know, being in the insurance committee, people tend not to want to put their names on papers that if there's not the appropriate steps that have been taken to ensure that liability standards have been met.
Mr. Navarro?
Yeah, I've got a question. Since this is our form and we hand it to the doctor, he throws it in the garbage and walks away. What's any repercussions?
I know as a former police officer, I wouldn't be leaving the emergency room with that prisoner if the doctor discarded it and wouldn't give it to me back. And I would be asking for a superior to try to facilitate that form being filled out. And I would also be documenting that on body camera and in reports stating that they refuse services. And, you know, unfortunately, sometimes we're put in position in law enforcement where we have to think outside the box. And if you have to go to another facility, even outside the general geographic area to get the proper care, I mean, I would take that step because it is surely less cumbersome to go somewhere else that is not close by and get that proper care than be faced with litigation or problems within the facility caused by the lack of care that an individual needed.
I think that's also why we want to sit down with them ahead of time and not just kind of surprise them with this letter. They can make the emergency room staff available or aware that these are going to be coming from with the officers now, so that hopefully we don't get somebody who sees that and says, "I'm not doing that," and then just walks away from it. But
Well, yeah, you're going to be checking to see whether you're going to get pushback before you implement it.
Correct.
And then if you're getting pushback, then the administration, your end and the county, higher ups in the hospital are going to have to hopefully work it out.
Sandy, you have a question?
It was along the same lines. Jason, I applaud you for initiating a conversation before. I think that, ends a lot of confusion. I'm like you, I don't like surprises, and especially when multiple different people, deputies, are going to have to be going into the facilities. And I think that that's a really great idea, and I applaud you for that. I think this is something that wasn't on my radar that I didn't even realize was happening. So I think it's really great that you are taking steps in order to correct this. Jim, I was wondering, do you have opinions on this? You have such a wide professional knowledge.
Well, there's a
the
lot of
medical.
things I might want to talk to him about privately, but, because there's some other ramifications to this too. But, not, first I heard of it too, so I'd like to consider it further. Except I certainly encourage both the county and the hospital to work it out and also to get input how it's worked out by other counties with other hospitals in other areas, because as you indicated, this is not something that's unique to the LaSalle County and the local hospital, correct?
that's correct. It's also still in, again, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's still somewhat new. They're still getting it out to other counties. So I have been working with them to try to find out who's been doing it, find out how it's been working. I would like to get some of that feedback before we go to the hospital so that I can already know, because hospitals generally are all going to have the same thought process. So if I see how the other agencies addressed it with them and any pushbacks and the changes they made, then we can address that right going in and tell them we understand your concerns, but this is why we need to do this.
That's what I was encouraging, and it sounds like you are, because theoretically, both the county and the hospital should be considering the what's best in regard to the health of the patient.
Correct.
Any other questions? All right, Jason, thank you very much.
Marius, I had one question for you real quick before I leave. I just noticed under your executive session, there's something about litigation. I know that we just recently had something serviced. I just didn't know if it's something you guys needed me here for, if it was a jail one or if it's a different one.
Mike? Would we need them there?
Okay.
Yeah, Marius, I was just wondering, Jason, if you'd be open to coming back and giving us like updates on this and how this is going in the department.
Absolutely.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Talk about that
That's
after,
it, the red clock,
if we can.
Rich, are you ready? For the transport vehicle?
Yeah, I just was here to be put on the, for informational purposes. I forwarded to the insurance and trust through Melissa because went through my safety committee and finance. And, we're entertaining getting a, decedent transport van. So we just wanted to make sure that they would be covered in any kind of liabilities and stuff with the county is one reason I'm here, in case anybody had any question.
I think they're indicating no issue.
Yeah, there's absolutely no issue covering it. We just have to schedule it on the policy. So when you get it, the pertinent information, obviously cost, model, and that kind of stuff. But yeah, give it to Melissa and we'll get it scheduled and it'll be added.
There's no change in premium, is there?
Not mid-year, no, nope. So coverage would be automatic.
Anyone have any questions? I guess, Rich, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm gonna leave it on. No questions for Rich. Rich, you have any questions for us?
Nope, that's what, I'm just verifying, going through the steps. Thank you.
Okay,
If you need anything in email, electronic writing about this, we could provide you with the meeting minute where we just discussed it, if you need to give that back to any other board members that asked.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
all right, the next thing on the agenda is the cancellation of the industrial appraisal agreement. Now, Mike, did you want to address that, or?
Sure. So you have an agreement with Industrial Appraisal for two services. One is for the insurance appraisal portion, which as part of the ICRMT deal, they provide those services, so we don't need them any longer from Industrial Appraisal. It's just part of the premium. And the second part of it was the fixed asset calculation, which apparently accounting and finance have in their system and don't need that support from Industrial Appraisal. So it is clear we no longer need the Industrial Appraisal services.
You know, Melissa just had shown that to me this morning. I was thinking, what do we pay them for that?
I think annually, we just paid the invoices for their activity that, the 24 report. I think it was a couple, like maybe 4,000. They provide two reports. They charge us separately for each one. One is insurables and one is,
Yeah, we paid them $2,190.
For the appraisal?
Correct, for both services.
Total is 20?
Correct.
And then you say you will do it, I mean,
They've actually already done it, and it's part of the ICRMT services.
so we had an agreement with them before we started our relationship with ICRMT. And we were having that, it was an annual thing. It's been going on since before I started with Industrial Appraisal. Now that we have the services through IPMG, ICRMT, it's duplicative. I've conferred with the auditor and our outside auditor, Tanya, and neither of them need the reports. They already have everything established, and then every 4 to 5 years, ICRMT/IPMG will come out and they'll do another appraisal process, correct?
Yeah, just to clarify, it's Kroll that does it. It's not ICRMT. They actually
Okay.
subcontract that service with them,
Okay.
which is
Correct.
the old Duff and Phelps.
So what's the premiums we're paying for that now?
For all of the insurance coverage?
Well, for just
It's
their
just
portion?
included in the premium. It's not an itemized.
Okay.
We don't pay for that service every 4 to 5 years, or if we would build a new building, we would ask them to have Kroll come out and do it. But if we have industrial appraisal, they will charge us every time that we come to do it. So, in speaking with Attorney Herman about this, who I know spoke with Mr. McFedrin, we looked at the agreement that was on file, and it was a rolling annual. It never stopped. So in order to stop it, the full board has to approve canceling it because a former county board chairman signed it, not the insurance trust. So I asked Mr. Herman if this committee supported the action of canceling it and forwarded that recommendation to the full board would understand that 7 of you have already heard this and understand what it is when it goes to the next board meeting. And then when that's presented, I think Mr. Herman would have a letter and a resolution where we're canceling it.
What we're
That would
looking
be
for is-
provided.
What we're looking for is a recommendation. Pat has talked to me about it, and we talked before he even came up with the plan he suggested to Melissa. And in essence, this was originally set up before ICRMT provided the similar service that makes it now duplicative. And there are some other things that were being done internally, as Nugent has indicated, to make it duplicative. But given that it was originally signed off on by the county board as a whole, and given that it rolls over, the proper process in regard to terminating the relationship, if indeed we're assured that we don't need it anymore, would be to have the trust committee make a recommendation to the county board that it's believed that given that it's duplicative and that we've been provided assurance that it is, that we recommend that it be discontinued going forward. What it was used for previously included the fact that you make sure you keep an eye on what your inventory of assets is so that you don't miss something, not only for insurance, well, in large part for insurance value, to make certain that all of your assets are covered in regard to your actions. But if they're already doing this, and we now have the insurance, and they've represented that they are, and Mike Nugent's also checked it out, and if our external auditor, Tanya Mack, has also signed off on it, and if our internal accounting folks are comfortable with the point that it's duplicative, I think Melissa and everybody else has done the due diligence that's needed to give this committee the foundation to make a recommendation that, given the duplicative nature of it, you would recommend it be discontinued.
Michael, did IPMC do an assessment last year? Did they do it last year?
We would have done it the first year you joined, which would have been the spring of 2023.
How did your evaluation compare with our independent one? I
didn't compare.
Our premium is based on what this evaluation is it not?
The property premium is, yes.
Yes.
I'm just thinking, you're insuring us, then you're gonna tell us what's worth rather than an independent? You know what I'm saying?
Well, we use an independent to provide that report to
They're
you.
using a firm that is the same as Industrial Appraisal.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're a competitor.
And then in turn, there's some other triggers in it. It blankets your property value, or it provides a blanket coverage on your property. Therefore, we know it. Yeah, we have, but you guys get that report. I don't know. We send it off through the broker. You should have it, but if there's disputes or something, and there's pictures, there's records, they go back out and look at it, right? So we want you to agree to it as well.
And county still needs to be diligent in making sure ICRMT gets notified anytime there is addition to assets, just like happened earlier this morning in regard to a vehicle. And so, that still needs to that still needs to happen. They can't appraise something they're not aware of. This is, in a sense, from what I'm hearing correctly, it's just an additional benefit with this particular insurance agreement that we did not have apparently with the prior insurance understanding.
And I also think it's protection for ICRMT to have their vendor provide the appraisal so that they have confidence in those values because they're providing the insurance coverage.
Because other people, everybody can have different opinions.
That's right.
Yeah, just to see the,
And furthermore, just to Bob's point, it's blanketed your limits. So it's the combined value of all your buildings and contents. So for any one loss, that blanket limit applies. And so if there's any discrepancy as to the value of a specific building, it really doesn't impact what you could
Right.
recover after a loss.
anyone else have any questions? So do we need a motion, Jim, to send this to the full board?
Yeah, what you would do is make a motion that you recommend that, given the foundation that's been laid in regard to the point that this independent appraisal service from industrial appraisal is duplicative, and considering all the attendant circumstances and the presentation here to the committee, that you're recommending that the contract with industrial appraisal company be terminated, and that the board consider terminating it for those reasons.
That motion was made by Billard, seconded by Retta. Yeah. Any other questions on that? Hearing none, then a motion to approve. All those in favor, aye?
I think
Aye.
a roll call would be helpful on this one, because you're dealing with cessation of payment of money.
Okay, roll call. Joe?
Aye.
Sandy?
Aye.
Craig? I mean, Doug?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Loretta?
Aye.
And Craig?
Aye.
All ayes. All right. I guess, Mike, the next thing would be your reports.
Okay. The finance report dated May 14th, month over month, the balances are down 165,337 as claims have been paid and money has been transferred. We have 3 requisitions this month, two regular CCMSI fees, one for the month of June and one for the April runoff, and then the monthly ICRMT installment for May. All of the other reports are for executive session.
Okay.
So I'll let Laura do hers.
Laura, ready?
All right, good morning. As far as the combined activities for loss control consulting services and the safety committee for the past month, we met yesterday for the safety committee meeting. Fred was not present, so Lisa Dahl from the School Health Services represented Fred for the meeting. And she presented some information just as far as the severe weather drills, which were completed on 4/16, just to review the procedures and alerts, how they contact the different departments, and different desktop and telephone services with these drills. We also completed defensive driving classes. I completed 2 of them. On the 5th, and the 6th, and the 7th of this month, we had 26 participants. It's the National Safety Council's 4-hour curriculum is what I use for defensive driving classes. And I'll be offering another one in the evening. It'll be focused primarily for the Coroner's Department, EMA for individuals who have full-time jobs, but might be hurt on company time with off-hour positions. Workers' compensation claims, we had 1 in the month of April at the nursing home with a combative resident, and I've spoken with the nursing home and, just working with some of their combative curriculums and trainings there with them. And so we're up to 6 claims for this year, which matches where we were in last year at this point in time. There were no safety concerns and submissions reported to Fred by employees in the past month. For Find It, Fix It, I visited with the EMA department last month just to go through the facility, looking for basic fire life safety, and, just talked about training curriculum and things and policies and procedures outside of, in the field. This month's safety training topic is the bloodborne pathogens training. So there's the Vector online training platform for everybody to watch. And a risk reminder has been provided for department heads to share within their departments. And just focused on the fact that the bloodborne pathogens policy, if we think about it, bloodborne pathogens has been with us for about 30 years now. And so just to remind everybody not to become complacent when it comes to what happens when we find a blood situation or if we become injured on the job, to make sure that we're taking care of even our smallest cuts. It's human blood. It does not include like dogs or, bats or other animals that people might come in contact with depending on their tasks within the county. And, just to follow the policies as far as immunizations for those who qualify for immunizations, reporting cleanups so that everybody is safe, that only trained individuals are cleaning up blood or bodily fluid spills. And then employee open floor, IT did discuss new technology that's available in the buildings for active assailant safety. And our next meeting will be on Wednesday, June 11th.
Anyone have any questions? Mark? Thank you very much, Mark. I guess the next thing we are going to go into, or Rob, you have anything for open session, or John?
Not, Mr. Chairman.
So everything, all we have left is the executive session
I believe so.
information? No, Bob, one thing before, were you going to discuss the risk assessment for the nursing home in executive session?
Sure.
Okay. Motion to go into executive session then? By Emmett? Seconded by Zanecki? Roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Sandy?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Aye.
All ayes.
And this is also in regard to the pertinent provisions of the Open Meetings Act, most pertinently 5 ILCS 120/2C11 and 1211 has to do with litigation when an action's affecting or pending and/or is probable or imminent, amongst other provisions in that section. And Section 12 has to do with the establishment of reserves or settlement of claims and provided in the Local Government Tort Immunity Act and other related matters to that. For the record.
Get out of line.